In business today, three things to know. First, a text to hook up. Mark Zuckerberg plans a $19 billion purchase of text messaging site WhatsApp. Is the move for Facebook brilliant or desperate? Then, torn apart. Escalating violence in the Ukraine as the leadership chooses Russia in the East for financial help, while opponents want closer ties to the West. And Nigeria has a new head of the central bank amid escalating questions as to where billions of dollars in oil money has gone. The bold move by President Goodluck Jonathan. AriseXchange starts now. Hello, everyone. I'm Andrew Schmertz. Positive news in the manufacturing sector helped lead the S&P 500 to near record highs on Thursday. U.S. factory activity accelerated at its fastest pace in nearly 4 years this month. That comes from the Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index. That report followed a series of less than stellar economic news. Weekly claims for unemployment insurance did fall last week, but not as much as expected. And the Consumer Price Index, which measures inflation, rose a nominal 0.1%. That did match expectations and means there's virtually no inflation. However, that may be related to wage and employment stagnation. A volatile day on the markets nonetheless, even though not a whole lot of movement. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up 92 points to 16,133.23. The S&P 500 up 11, nearing that record at 1839. And the NASDAQ up 30 to 42.67. After the bell earnings news, Groupon reporting quarterly earnings of 4 cents a share versus 2 cents estimate. The company had $768 million in revenue. Taking a look at some other stocks we are watching today. Facebook reportedly making history with its purchase of the popular messaging startup WhatsApp for a total of $19 billion. The 5-year-old company has more than 450 million monthly users who pay little or nothing for the service. We're going to have more on that in a moment. Facebook trading up $1.57 to $69.63. Tesla stock hitting all cylinders today after the company reported quarterly earnings of $45.9 million, nearly 3 times higher than the previous quarter. Tesla says it's expanding its customer base to Europe and China and expects global sales to reach 35,000 vehicles for the year. Keep in mind, the U.S. buys about 16 million vehicles a year. Tesla up 16.33 to 209.97. And Walmart reporting a 21% drop in fourth quarter profits today. The company says it earned $4.43 billion. That's $1.36 a share, compared with $561 billion or $1.67 a share a year earlier. Walmart down $1.32 to 75, which is 73.53. Taking a look at commodities, gold up to 13.23 and oil up a couple cents to 102.85. So again, there's mixed economic news, but the markets continue to move forward. Sam Stovall is with S&P Capital IQ. He is back here on AriseXchange. So the S&P 500, sort of you're writing, reaching some technical levels that you think is going to break through.
That's right. Well, 1848 and change was the prior high set on January 15th, and we went down 5.8% into what I call a pullback zone, which is between 5 and 10%. And right now we're knocking on that door once again. But what I like to say is that resistance is like a rusty door, and it takes several attempts before it finally swings open. So our belief is that we probably will break above that in the next couple of days.
Okay, so what is driving that push through that rusty door on the technical side?
Well, I think we got, as you had just reported, better than expected factory numbers, and I think a lot of people were worried that maybe the blame of weather is not going to go deep enough, and as a result that there are more problems with the economy. So getting a couple of good numbers out there. I think also the M&A activity is a signal that maybe we're starting to see corporate managers open up those purse strings and spend money not just on dividends.
Well, and we saw that with Facebook certainly today. Let me ask you about the economic news. Are you in the camp that the bad winter that we've had is really suppressing the economy to the extent that the numbers are showing?
Yes. I believe that what we're likely to see is that first quarter GDP maybe comes in at 1.5 to 1.7% versus our initial estimate of 2.2%. So I think we will end up seeing that the weather has adversely affected and that we will probably see a makeup in the economic growth, and we probably will see a growth of about 3% for all of this year.
Yeah, we may see some pent-up demand then, and that's what everyone is sort of counting on in construction and housing starts and maybe in employment numbers as well. So there could be a benefit to this.
That's correct. Also, the expectation is that capital expenditures on an overall economic perspective likely to double, going from about 3.5% to more than 7% this year. So companies are willing to expand.
Okay, let me ask you about the Fed. Once again, we got a sort of muddled memo from the Fed Tuesday that some governors are maybe pushing for a higher short-term interest rate, as well as possibly now holding back on some of that tapering, another $10 billion expected next month. Is the market reacting to that at all?
Well, I think the market is probably actually thinking that maybe the Fed will be tapering its tapering, that if the economy is weak enough, either whether it's because of the winter season or more, that we probably could see the Fed decide, you know what, maybe we'll skip a month or two, and that instead of being completed by the end of this year, maybe drag it into the first quarter of 2015.
Isn't that the bar staying late, a little later open for more people to drink? I mean, so the market's looking very short term then.
Well, I think that it's not going to happen. I think that the Fed is going to be saying, look, we regard QE3 as a family member who just doesn't know when to go home, so we want to clear this out as quickly as possible. The economy is likely to be strong enough to allow them to do this, but not strong enough for inflation to become a real worry.
Okay, so finally, economic indicators we should look at over the next 3 months.
Well, I think certainly that a pickup in housing, because we're expecting to see that as we dig out from the snow, that we probably should start to see a pickup there. Also, a lot of the leading indicators, whether it's the leading economic, industrial production, et cetera, more than just the surveys, which are more opinions and softer data that are asked of these manufacturing managers.
Look at the hard numbers. Sam Stovall,
Exactly.
Thank you so much. Okay. The European Union is holding emergency meetings to consider sanctions against Ukraine. This as violence flared again in Kiev, where at least 33 people are dead. Two key developments Thursday. Russia is sending an envoy to mediate discussions with anti-government protesters, and the U.S. is urging Ukraine's government to withdraw forces from Kiev's Independence Square. All of this comes on the heels of the Ukrainian government scrapping a deal with the European Union in favor of closer ties with Russia. After that move, Russia provided a $15 billion bailout for an economy that is in shambles. Wojciech Kononczuk, a senior fellow for Eastern Studies with the Wilson Center, is on the phone with how this crisis is unfolding over some key economic issues. Wojciech, thank you for joining us today.
Hello.
So this is kind of complicated. Can you walk us through a little bit about how we got to this point and why the Ukrainian leaders so far are choosing Russia?
Let me at the beginning correct you slightly. At least 60 people were killed today in the center of Kiev, and the EU already imposed target sanctions, including visa ban and some asset freeze, against those people in the government who are responsible for human rights, for violence. So what happened today in Kiev? Since very morning, we had some disaster clashes between the protesters and the police. As I said, many people were died. So watching today the pictures from Kiev, I had the impression that we are observing not the one of the European countries, but some Middle East countries or such a cities like Cairo, for example.
Now, Russia is going in there to, quote, negotiate or help mediate, but you say that Russia is hardly a neutral player.
Of course, Russia is not a neutral player. I would say that Ukrainian crisis is the top priority for Russia's foreign policy agenda. And what is important that Russia, unlike the EU and the US, has quickly understood that the Ukrainian crisis could have a far-reaching geopolitical consequences. However, what we see is that Russia prefers to act behind a curtain and using a very different instruments which it has in Ukraine and which the West lacks. So there is no doubt that what's going on in Ukraine is extremely important for Russia.
Well, let me ask you this. First, did the European Union and the United States drop the ball in these negotiations to begin with?
I don't think so. I think that there is still a chance to find some kind of political solution. I would say that at the beginning there are some negotiations between the three foreign ministers from the EU countries, from Poland, from Germany, and from France. These three ministers are negotiating the whole day today with Mr. Yanukovych. But honestly speaking, I don't really think that Yanukovych is ready to go on some compromises. But what is really important today is that it is already obvious because of these casualties that Yanukovych as Ukrainian president is finished. But the question is how many human lives it will cost.
It will cost them. Well, let me ask you this then. Is the sanctions a smart move in the sense of looking for an end game here? Because couldn't that just push the Ukrainians more to Russia?
I don't think so. We have to remember that Yanukovych's room for maneuver at the beginning is very, very limited.
Mm-hmm.
What is really important, there are some promising signs in Ukrainian politics at the moment. I would say that the growing division in Ukrainian ruling elite is very important. More and more MPs from the presidential party of region have decided to leave the party today. And Yanukovych has lost its control over the parliament, which is also very crucial. And the third thing is that oligarchs, the richest people in Ukraine, also very influential in Ukrainian politics people, they understand that Yanukovych is lost. Is finished.
So let me ask you this. Can you give us a picture then of how poor the Ukrainian economy is?
Oh, it's a very important question. I would say that Ukraine's vulnerability to Russian blackmail has worsened because of the growing crisis of the Ukrainian economy. Since the middle of 2012, Ukrainian GDP has fallen continually, and the country has not been able to pay for Russian gas. So Ukrainians' economic weakness is obviously being exploited by Russia, and without any doubt, any new government, hopefully Ukraine will get soon, will need some very important economic package from the West.
Okay. Wojciech Kononczuk, a senior fellow for Eastern Studies with the Wilson Center. Thank you so much. We'll check back in with you as this process develops. And you are watching AriseXchange.
Arise News is a different kind of network. We are able to tell our own stories, and we're able to cover stories in a way that other media outlets don't do. We've got world-class journalists, veteran journalists who have been in this industry for decades, not just in front of the camera, but behind the scenes as well. Arise News is a place where we can tell stories in an interesting, factual, inclusive way like no one else in the business can.
Time now for our business ticker. The Keystone Pipeline that would carry oil from Canada to refineries in Texas has run into yet another obstacle. A judge in Nebraska overturning a state law passed in 2012, giving the governor authority over the Keystone route instead of the state's Public Service Commission. Opponents to the pipeline could say that it could pollute the environment, and Nebraska ranchers and farmers fear it could hurt their water supply. Other states along the pipeline's route, such as Montana, South Dakota, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas, have approved their segments, and oil is already flowing from Oklahoma to Texas. President Obama is still considering giving the federal government's green light. The Gap is shaking up America's heated debate over raising the national minimum wage. In a surprising move, the apparel retailer said it intends to raise the hourly pay for its U.S. workers to $9 in 2014 and $10 in 2015. The increase in wages would benefit about 65,000 store employees at its apparel chains, which include Old Navy and Banana Republic. Meanwhile, Walmart, the largest private employer in the U.S., says it remains neutral on the issue of the federal minimum wage of at least $10.10 per hour, and adds it already pays most full-time employees above that level. A computer security breach at the University of Maryland has exposed more than 300,000 personal records. Those records include the names, social security numbers, and dates of birth for faculty, staff, and students who have received identification cards dating back to 1998. The breach is being investigated to determine how the university's sophisticated multi-layered security defenses were in fact breached. It's estimated that marijuana sales in Colorado will approach $1 billion in the first year, according to the governor's budget office. Recreational pot sales in Colorado are estimated to account for over $600 million of those dollars, a more than 50% increase over previous projections. The figures are the first official state estimates to be released since marijuana sales began in stores on January 1st. And combined, the recreational and medical marijuana industries are expected to pump nearly $134 million of taxes and fee revenue into state coffers. A shakeup at Nigeria's central bank is shedding more light on what may or may not be the missing of billions of dollars of oil revenue. Today, President Goodluck Jonathan nominated a new governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Goodwin Emefiele. This follows the sacking of Bank Governor Lamido Sanusi, who was suspended Thursday by the president. Sanusi is an outspoken critic of the government's record on cracking down on corruption in the oil sector. He had been presenting evidence of some $20 billion in oil money missing from government coffers due to it by the oil company Nigeria National Petroleum Corporation. That company denies the allegations. To help make sense of what all of this means and may mean for investors in Nigeria is Tony Carroll from Manchester Investments, who just recently came back from Nigeria. Tony, welcome back to AriseXchange.
Well, thank you. It's good to be here.
All right, so if we could create high drama in the oil money industry, this certainly does. Can you, first, it's a complicated story. Can you explain to us what the core issue here is?
Well, the issue is accountability of some $20 billion. This issue has been simmering for the last several months when a few months ago, the former governor of the central bank, Lamido Sanusi, had made a statement saying that up to $40 billion were not turned over to the Treasury from the National Petroleum Company. He backed off on that a little bit after some discussion and said it was $10 billion. Well, as it turns out in the last several weeks, he's been, shall we say, sharpening his pencil and has come up with a figure closer to $20 billion that's been unaccounted for. So the way it works is the National Petroleum Company, which receives the revenue from the oil sales of about $67 billion per year, has remitted only $47 billion to the federal treasury, leaving a gap of $20 billion.
So the government says there's two different accounts here, and this is where it gets kind of murky, that the money is actually in another account, and there's been accusations that Sanusi has some other political ideas out there. Was he fired over political reasons? And then the correlating question is his replacement in there because he's sort of going to kind of appease the government.
Well, look, I think this politics are, of course, involved in almost everything in Nigeria. But I think Governor Sanusi's term was ending in June anyway. So he was already had a foot out the door. I think first of all, the replacement of Governor Sanusi is possibly an unconstitutional undertaking by the president. Section 11 of the Central Bank Act of Nigeria requires a 2/3 majority from the Nigerian Senate to, in effect, remove the governor. Given the state of the Senate and the fact that there's been a lot of defections from the PDP party, from Goodluck Jonathan's party, there's no way that they would get the 2/3 majority, and some are even suggesting in today's press that this might be grounds for impeachment of the president. And I'm old enough to remember the Saturday Night Massacre.
I was about to ask you if
Watergate.
this was the Saturday Night Massacre.
Saturday Night, Archibald Cox.
Yep.
Who was Archibald Cox? He didn't have a political base, and some people in Nigeria say to me, Lamido Sanusi has no political base. I even talked to the personal advisor to the Minister of Petroleum, saying, well, he doesn't really have a political base, but he has a base of probity. And I think the fact is that $20 billion, where 130 million people live on $2 or less a day in Nigeria, is a lot of money.
So
and the fact is, this is going to simmer.
It's going to simmer. And where then does the pressure come on the president and possibly Goodwin Emefiele as well from the investment community inside Nigeria and outside of Nigeria?
Well, obviously a cloud over the successor's authority if this is an unconstitutional act. This will simmer, not unlike Watergate. It will become a big issue in the legislature. The media will make what they will out of this. This will have legs. Now, I'm not saying that this is necessarily a game changer in terms of an election about 12 months from now, but it might be. And you might see a serious run on the Naira. I think some of us have been expecting that anyway with the departure of Governor Sanusi. It might happen sooner rather than later.
Is there enough push in Parliament then to continue these hearings and possibly cause more pressure on the president?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm convinced that this will be a simmering political issue. We don't have Peter Rodino and Sam Ervin, but we have their equivalents who are willing to dig into this issue, and I think they'll make political hay of it over the next 12 months.
I wonder then if there's a positive outcome, meaning that maybe we'll see a functional democratic regime in Nigeria working.
Well, one would hope. I mean, I think Nigeria is an extraordinary place. It's very resilient. The people are creative and hardworking, and they just need to have a better political environment in which for them to thrive. And I think they can thrive. I just think that, yeah, it could turn out to be a good thing, but I'm not making any predictions about how that will unfold.
And so, Tony, so right now, short term, you think that there could be a negative impact for those looking to invest or have investments in Nigeria? They may start having second thoughts a little bit?
Well, I think there's plenty of really good opportunity. I was just in Nigeria this week, and the number of buildings being constructed, commercial buildings, it's sort of looked like Dubai did 20 years ago. I mean, clearly on a much smaller scale. Okay. There's a lot of investment opportunities in the consumer goods space, services. I think the Naira will have to be factored in as maybe declining in value of 10, 15% over the next 2 or 3 months. So investors are going to have to take a look at that. But I wouldn't take a run against Nigeria. I think it's still a place that has a lot of promise and opportunity in many areas.
Okay, Tony Carroll, we'll have you back on as this, as you say, simmers and
pleasure.
We'll appreciate it. Okay. Ahead, the Archbishop and his luxury crib. Our favorite person of the day is next.
Well, Arise is the only network that really covers comprehensively the African diaspora. It gives people in other parts of the world of color a chance to know about people here in the United States, us to know about them, and the world to know about us. So it's kind of an educational experience for everybody involved. Getting to know people through stories, through personal stories. You really get a chance to know what people are actually all about, what communities are about. How are we different? But more importantly, what commonalities we all share.
Time now for our favorite person of the day, when we pick one person who grabbed our attention and not for the right reasons. Today, it is the Archbishop of Newark, New Jersey, who is building himself a palatial retirement home, while at the same time, the Archdiocese is so poor that it's closing schools. According to the New York Times, Archbishop John J. Myers doesn't think his 4,500 square foot vacation home is big enough. So he's building a 3,000 square foot addition. And the Newark Archdiocese is picking up the bill. The house already has a swimming pool in the back, and the new addition comes with a hot tub. Now, for the record, the Archdiocese says the hot tub is really, quote, a whirlpool, and that Myers needs it for therapeutic reasons. No matter what you call it, the renovation comes with a $500,000 price tag. Maybe the Archbishop is hoping for an appearance on House Hunters. Myers, who insists on being called Your Grace, as if this is 18th century England, refuses to apologize for the lavish lifestyle or for spending money that critics say could have gone to keeping Catholic schools open in Newark. One school was closed 2 years ago because the Archdiocese said it had no money, and that's to build that whirlpool, obviously. Nor would a spokesperson answer questions about why the money is not used to feed the homeless or anything other than building a McMansion. The Archbishop has also been accused of harboring pedophile priests. His response, those critics are, quote, evil. And he has said priests who criticize him have questionable lifestyles. And so that makes Archbishop John J. Myers our favorite person of the day. Next, Facebook snags a prize with a hefty price tag. That's next on AriseXchange.
Arise serves underserved communities by bringing them news, information, sports, and entertainment from places that are becoming part of the world economy, that are becoming a part of the world voice, and decisions that are affecting things in the world that people care about. They care about the economy. They care about safety and security. And if you come to Arise and you watch our broadcast, these are the things we're going to bring to you. every day, 24 hours a day.
Messaging startup WhatsApp's founders can now add another title to their resumes, billionaire, after Facebook's record purchase of the 5-year-old company. Facebook is paying a reported $16 billion in combined cash and stock and $3 billion more in restricted shares to WhatsApp employees. WhatsApp reached 450 million users faster than any other company in history, and Wall Street says that this deal does make perfect sense for a variety of reasons. Does our tech expert and quantum CEO Ari Zoldan agree? Ari, welcome back to AriseXchange.
All right, great
So
to
do you
be
agree?
here.
Does this deal make sense?
No.
$19 billion for a company with $20 million in revenue.
Absolutely doesn't make sense. And I'm a huge technology enthusiast. It makes no sense whatsoever. Granted, the user base is growing by 1 million subscribers every single day, but it pegs each user at $40. It makes no sense at all.
Well, let me ask you this. First, how does WhatsApp, you always have to ask these questions of these companies, how does WhatsApp make money?
Right, so that's the big question. I mean, right now it's free, but after you sign up for the service, after 1 year, they're charging $1 per year. $1 per year, not $1 a month, but $1 per year.
Okay, so that could result in $450 million.
It could, if people are willing to pay for the service. Once money gets involved, I mean, today there are services that are there for free. So once you start charging people, it becomes...
Is that their sole line of revenue?
Right now, it is. Right now, it is. It's only been around for 2 years. There's only 50 employees. $19 billion is absolutely staggering.
So this is some of the things that I heard about Facebook doing this. Facebook is desperate, that they're watching their user base shrink month by month, and they're in essence buying 450 million users. Any truth to that?
Probably, yeah. I'd say about 90% of that is accurate. They also like the technology. They like the employees as well. But obviously, it's a threat. I don't think it's a massive threat, but certainly something that's been on Facebook's radar for a while.
Okay, the positives on this, from what I've heard, is that this was a bold move by Facebook, that Facebook basically is taking out a competitor, possibly, as well as better positioning its company. But Facebook is spending 10% of its market cap.
Right. So I think it is a smart move, because if look at what happened to Instagram. Instagram was purchased for $1 billion, and that was only last year. I mean, Skype. I mean, this is the largest acquisition, I think, in tech history right now. So I think it's a smart move. I think it's a very smart move for Facebook to go out there and start gobbling up a lot of their competitors. So
okay. So and is Facebook structured that Mark Zuckerberg makes these decisions?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
so I don't know what type of advisors he gets, but he's the one out there negotiating.
Well, there's a board, but obviously the influence, most of it is coming from him.
So if you are Snapchat, was it, that turned down $3 billion?
Right.
What do you think today?
I mean, Snapchat, I mean, they're probably killing themselves right now. I mean, to turn down $3 billion with zero revenue, I think they're going to look back and they're going to say, holy crap, I missed the boat on this.
So what do you think now does Facebook do next? Is Facebook going to be in the market of gobbling up many more companies?
I think they're going to be hard. I think they're going to go strong on acquisitions in every single related space right now. They want to keep the market share on social media.
And so where will they be looking? Do you think there's anything out there that they like?
I think they're going to be looking at a lot of location-based services. Companies like Foursquare would be one of them also. I wouldn't be surprised in the next 6 months we see something.
Let me ask you, though, because there's a question about Facebook's business model. Obviously, it's hugely popular, but it's losing eyeballs.
Right.
This acquisition has a lot of growth, but again, at some point, it seems like all of this is sort of like the expanding universe theory, that at some point gravity pulls all of these companies back in. Is the business model fundamentally damaged?
I don't think it's damaged. I think it needs improvement. And I think as time goes on, I think we're going to see the tech sector evolving and people are going to be focused more on revenue. Right now, it's all about expectation. I mean, yeah, the top numbers are great. 450 million users, 1 million a day. The story is great. But at the end of the day, where's the money? Where's the money?
Okay, let's ask you what WhatsApp actually does, because it's a text messaging service, and it sounds like we all have that on our phones, but this does have some pretty cool technology.
Right, so why, I mean, if you're doing text right now, you're doing other kind of Facebook messaging, why go ahead and download WhatsApp? So it's a universal text messaging service. So I like to call it its text message on steroids. It's a lot sexier than your standard text message, and it's a completely agnostic platform. So if you're going overseas, the telecom companies kill you on data usages, and so this sort of replaces the
But it
BBM.
only works if you have broadband connection, does it?
But it also
Wireless.
works over Wi-Fi as well.
Okay.
So if you're overseas and you have a wireless connection, so you're now sending messages for free.
Okay, so what is this deal closes? You basically think it's a private company. There's not going to be much that will stop it.
No, I think it's done.
It's done.
It's
okay.
done.
All right. Ari Zoldan from Quantum LLC. Thank you so
Wonderful.
much.
My pleasure. Thank
Appreciate
you.
your thoughts today.
Thank you.
We'll have more on the controversy surrounding the Keystone Pipeline and its impact on the global economy tomorrow here on AriseXchange. Let's take a look at the final numbers for the day. The S&P 500 is squeaking closer to that record high. You heard Sam Stovall earlier in the show thinking it is going to break through it on technical levels. It's closing at 1839. Dow Jones Industrial Average up 92 to 16,133. The NASDAQ also up nearly 30 points to 4267. The market's moving ahead despite some questionable economic news. I'm Andrew Schmertz. Thanks for watching AriseXchange. Good night.